Welcome to today's coffee break, where Nick and I are going to talk about how to book the world's greatest hotels with points.
Yeah, I love to use my points and I love to use my points to stay at great hotels. So I'm pretty excited to talk about using points to stay at great hotels. So this all kind of started because you found a particular list of great hotels. And I mean, of course, there's a lot of lists out there, but Travel and Leisure creates a list of their top 100, best hotels in the world each year. And you always kind of take a look at that list, right?
Yeah, so I went through their top 100 list, which I don't for a second agree with is necessarily
Right.
the world's best 100 hotels, but it's useful to just have a starting point because I was curious how many of these can be booked with points, and not just at all with points, but to get potentially really good value for your points, because that's really the game we play, right? We
Right.
we try to see whether we can get outsized value with our points, and that's the goal here. So, uh, going through that top 100 list, I found quite a few. I found 28 that can be booked with points in ways that could potentially give you outsized value. So, for example, leading hotels of the world, 10 of the 28 hotels were just in that group. Hyatt had five, Marriott and IHG four each.
Hmm.
Preferred hotels, which are book specifically one's bookable with choice privileges points, had three. Hilton had two, one in SLH and one in Waldorf Astoria, and so that was the full list. But I should say there are plenty more on that list that are bookable with points. Like there are some Accor properties and lots of Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, which can be booked with Hilton points. I did not include those because, in my opinion, our options for using points to book those doesn't give us outsized value for those bookings, and so they're less interesting to me.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Hyatt points is just not going to yield good value compared to using your Hyatt points to stay at a Hyatt. So the five Hyatts that are on the list, I'm sure, are a much, much better value than booking any Mr. and Mrs. Smith, really. So that's why those don't make the list. Yeah, I mean, I find this a lot of fun because while I agree with Greg that this list is surely not the be all and end all in terms of best hotels in the world. It seems reasonable to assume that the 100 hotels that Travel and Leisure included are probably all pretty darn nice. And so, maybe they're not the 100 absolute best in the world,
Right.
but there are 100 of, the very good hotels, of some of the best anyway out there. So it's cool to see that properties that are recognized in that way can be booked with points, and not just booked with points, but booked with points to really good value. So that's exciting. So how can we
I
do
think so.
this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so let's step through each of those programs to talk about how best to book them with points. The first three I'm going to talk about are kind of obvious, so we'll do this really quick. Hyatt, Marriott, and IHG. I mean, basically, you book those with Hyatt, Marriott, and IHG points. Um, the Marriott ones, you have the option of doing their fifth night free awards to save some points that way. Sometimes you could use the free night certificates, depending, because Marriott only allows you to add up to 15,000 points to those. So it depends how expensive the hotel is on points as whether you can use your free nights. IHG, if you have one of the IHG credit cards, you can get the fourth night free. Or you could use IHG's 40K certs that are top offable, meaning that the ones that come with the premier cards, you can add points to those. So those are some ways you can book those. Um, Now let's move on to Hilton. The story isn't different with Hilton in that it's the same thing. You could book the Hiltons with points or free night certificates. You could get the fifth night free when you're booking with points. So it's the same story as some of these others. The difference here is that Hilton unlocks small luxury hotels of the world, the SLH properties, which surprisingly only one was on that top 100 list. But when I've looked at top lists before of other kinds, or even this list in past years, there have been a lot more SLH properties. So I think it's more of a quirk of this
Yeah.
year's list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's some level of marketing that comes into this stuff and money that exchanges hands, I imagine. But but so I'm always a little dubious. But like we said, I'm sure these are all super nice places. Recently, the Michelin Guide, which is obviously famous for its star ratings for restaurants, added hotels. And so while they have Michelin stars for restaurants, they now have Michelin keys for hotels. And a hotel can have one key, two keys, or three keys. And so, for instance, I noticed a couple of SLH properties with Michelin keys that were not on the
Yeah.
top 100 best hotels list from Travel and Leisure. So, I mean, who knows? There's surely quite a few nice SLH properties out there. So it's exciting that you can use your Hilton points or free night certificates to book some of those incredible hotels.
It is. It really is. So that's awesome. But there's a bunch of there are a few programs we mentioned earlier that are not encompassed by those what big four programs of Hyatt, Marriott, IHG, and Hilton. You have leading hotels of the world, and that's where the way to unlock those stays for good value is start with Citi thank you points. And if you have the Citi Premier card, you can transfer your thank you points normally 5-1 to leading hotels, what they call Leaders Club. Now, that sounds like not good. I mean, to start
Right.
with 5 points and end up with 1 point, right? Um, but Leaders Club points tend to be worth about 8 cents each towards leading hotels of the world properties. And so you're talking about getting 1.6 cents around for your Citi points. And sometimes it turns out that Citi sometimes has transfer bonus to Leaders Club. And so with a 25% transfer bonus, you're looking at around 2 cents per Citi point for booking these stays, which is darn good.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is exciting about this is that while for the most part, certainly with Hilton, IHG, and Marriott, you're only able to book base rooms at good value with points, and so you're likely just going to be able to book whatever the base room is, and then you're going to be handcuffed by the availability of a base room, which at some of these luxury properties, there A, probably aren't very many base rooms, and then B, there's obviously competition for those base rooms. So the chances of you finding one available, well, it becomes more difficult anyway. And you have to use tools like we recently recorded a how-to video on how to use Rooms.aero to find great hotel deals, to find those awards, because you do need sometimes to use a tool like that in order to find standard room award availability. But with Leaders Club, since your points are more or less being applied towards the cash rate, you could book any room type and get that consistent value of, like Greg said, 1.6 cents per Citi point, or with the transfer bonus, more like 2 cents per Citi point, and then get yourself whatever room type it is you want. You need a suite, you can do that with your points. And so that's kind of nice about this. It provides a good opportunity for good value there.
Yeah. Another thing that's nice about it is that joining Leaders Club is free, and it's a necessary step in the process in order to move your Citi points over to Leaders Club. And just by booking through Leaders Club, so by booking with points or with cash through Leaders Club, you get a bunch of perks for your stay, almost like elite status perks. So you get, early check-in, late checkout. Now these are neither is guaranteed, but that's, you could get room upgrade, daily breakfast for two. There's some. Oh, and a gift, I think, a welcome gift as well. So anyway, I got to try this out last year at a property in Florida, and I was actually really, really pleasantly surprised how nice the perks that come with Leaders Club were, and how well they were delivered at this hotel. Now, all these hotels are independent from each other, so there's no promise that your experience will match mine in any way, but at least what's on paper about what you're supposed to get is pretty good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, that's one that's different than the others in terms of it's not as straightforward or obvious, perhaps, how to do that. But we have a couple others too that are less straightforward and obvious than, say, booking with Hyatt or Marriott or IHG or Hilton points. So next up, we've got the Choice Privileges and Preferred Hotels partnership, right?
Yeah, so Preferred Hotels, it's a collection of hotels very much like leading hotels of the world or like small luxury hotels. So preferred hotels, you can book with choice points. And not all of them are available with choice points, but the three I identified in that top 100 list were. And the thing there is that sometimes you're going to get really awful value because they've started charging over 100,000 points per night for some of these. Um, but I analyzed a bunch of these and found that there are still quite a few where you could get really, really solid value for your points. And so that's exciting, not just because you could get decent value with your choice points, but because from either uh, Citi thank you points or from Wells Fargo points, you can transfer those points 1 to 2 to Citi. So, when you see like a really nice hotel, like there's one in Lisbon that costs, if I'm remembering right, something like 26,000 points. That's only 13,000 Citi or Wells Fargo points for this, hotel that starts at something like $580 a night.
Mhm.
And that's an incredible bargain. So there are some really sweet deals there. Um, I should mention too, this is sort of a side trick. If you separately ask preferred hotels to match your status, if you have status in other hotel chains, um, your preferred number, your loyalty number will be attachable to these reservations made through choice. So you should get whatever elite benefits you're due just by doing that status match as well. So that's a nice little kind of hidden perk to that one.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean that's exciting if you're able to find one of these because 13,000 Citi points or Wells Fargo points for a room that might cost, like Greg said, maybe more than 500, close to $600 a night. That's a slamming deal considering the fact that otherwise, your choice is to transfer to airlines, of course, which you can get good value doing that, or cash those points out at like 1 cent each, right? So basically, if you're looking at 13,000 points, an amount that a lot of people will redeem for a $130 gift card, being able to instead trade that for a hotel that would cost 500 or 600 bucks. That's a really good deal for Citi points and or Wells Fargo points. And we often, or maybe we don't often enough, talk about the fact that the opportunities to get outsized value with hotel points are fewer than there are opportunities to get outsized value with airline miles. And so that's what makes all of this notable and worthy of talking about. But certainly with Citi not having very many hotel partnerships for years, it's a great opportunity to get good value for hotel booking with Citi points, which you otherwise weren't really going to get until this whole choice privileges 1 to 2 partnership came out. And then really once Greg wrote extensively about the preferred hotels partnership. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is really awesome. And Citi not only can unlock these two kind of unusual approaches to booking top hotels, it not only unlocks leading hotels of the world and preferred hotels indirectly through choice, but it also has another advantage, which is pretty cool, which is if you also have, so I mentioned before having the Citi Premier card as a good way to unlock the ability to do these transfers at full value. Um, if you also add on the fee-free Citi Rewards Plus card, and you combine your points with your Premier card, then you get 10% of your points back each year, like automatically when you redeem your points, including transferring them to another when you transfer to Choice or you transfer to Leaders Club. And now it's limited to up to 10,000 points back each year, or another way of saying that is limited to 100,000 points transferred each year. But still, that alone, that makes your Citi points even more valuable towards these top hotels.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's a good play to have a Premier and a Rewards Plus card. Now, do you recommend opening a Rewards Plus card just for that 10% rebate, or how do you recommend going about getting a Rewards Plus card?
Yeah, the reason Nick asked the question that way is the Rewards Plus card usually doesn't have a very exciting welcome bonus. Um, but there are other Citibank cards that do. And Citi is kind of unique, as far as I know, among the card issuers in that you can generally product change after you've had a card for a year from any of their personal cards, including like an American Airlines card, to something like the Rewards Plus. So if you're not in a hurry to get your Rewards Plus rebate, you could apply for the whatever the latest greatest American Airlines card offer is, get maybe 70,000 American Airlines miles, and then later product change that card to the Rewards Plus.
Yeah. And when Greg says later, he means like at least a year later. Usually they won't let your product change until you've had the card open for a year. It's got an annual fee anyway, or most issuers will require the year to be up before your product change. But yeah, that's perhaps a better way to end up with a Rewards Plus. Like Greg said, if you're not in the hurry to get the rebate this year, then that's what I would do. Even if you are in a hurry to get the rebate this year, the 70,000 American Airlines miles or whatever it is that's available right now on an American Airlines credit card are probably worth more than the 10% rebate. So I would go that route if I wanted the Rewards Plus and just be patient and wait until next year to get it. So
yeah.
All right, there you have it. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this and you'd like to get on our email list, you want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list, follow us on all the various social media, and check out our Frequent Miler on the Air episodes dropping every Friday.